The history of black people in the Pacific Northwest is a complex and often painful one, marked by exclusion, discrimination, and racial violence. The rest of the story coming up. This is KRT, Critical Race Theory. It's not the one they teach in law school, but the one banned in public schools. While the Pacific Northwest is now known for its liberal values and progressive politics, this was not always the case. In fact, black people were excluded from many aspects of life in the Pacific Northwest. In 1788, Marcus Lopez became the first person of African descent known to have set foot on Oregon soil. Lopez was a cabin boy on Captain Robert Gray's ship, which sailed into the Columbian River. However, it would be many years before black people were allowed to settle in the area. While geographically distant from the national infection caused by slavery, Oregon was not immune. The growing divisions over slavery were imported to Oregon in the 1840s as waves of white settlers traveled west on the Oregon Trail with potent racist attitudes. These immigrants, betraying their Midwest and border state experiences, brought their hatred of slavery and free blacks across the plains to their new homes. The great majority of these new Oregonians simply wanted to create an all-white society free of the racial problems threatening to cause an American Civil War. In 1843, the Oregon Provisional Legislature passed a measure prohibiting slavery but made no mention of free blacks. The next year, Peter Burnett, bolstered by a new wave of fellow Midwestern settlers, introduced a bill that extended new restrictions against blacks. One section required people holding slaves in Oregon to remove them within 3 years, or the slaves would be freed. Another section required free blacks over 18 to leave Oregon or be subject to trial. If found guilty, the person was to receive upon his or her bare back not less than 20, no more than 39 stripes, to be inflicted by the constable of the county. The punishment was to be repeated every 6 months until the person departed. Departed to where? These days, you just put your stuff out on the street. I digress. Well, this last law was soon deemed too harsh, and its provisions for punishment were reduced to forced labor. I think they call that slavery. After a shift in the makeup of the legislature, the law was repealed in 1845. In 1848, Oregon passed the first exclusion law in the Oregon country. The law was designed to prevent black people from settling in the area, and it was followed by a series of similar laws in the years that followed. For example, the Oregon Donation Land Act of 1850 granted free land to whites and half-breed Indians, but specifically excluded black people from claiming land in Oregon. In 1851, Jacob Vanderpool, a saloon keeper living in Salem, became the only person known to have been kicked out of the Oregon Territory because of his skin color. However, this was just the beginning of a long history of racial discrimination and violence against black people in the region. Amid the national turmoil, delegates to the Oregon Constitutional Convention in 1857 sought statehood to better control their own government destiny. They grappled with issues related to race and slavery throughout the proceedings. In the end, the delegates referred their questions to voters who overwhelmingly voted in November 1857 to prohibit slavery and ban free blacks. No slavery? No free blacks? My head is exploding. Although the resulting laws were not really enforced, they still sent a message. Thus, while small numbers of blacks were tolerated in Oregon throughout the mid-1800s, they struggled on the margins of society with few friends and fewer rights. In 1859, Oregon became the first state admitted to the Union with an exclusion law written into the state constitution. The law prohibited black people from settling in Oregon and owning property. The state's ban on interracial marriages was also extended to prevent whites from marrying anyone who was 1/4 or more Chinese or Hawaiian and 1/2 or more Native American. Despite the passage of the 13th Amendment, which banned slavery in the United States, and the 15th Amendment, which granted black men the right to vote, Oregon continued to discriminate against black people for many years. In fact, the state's citizens did not pass the 14th Amendment, which granted citizenship to blacks, and the state's ban on interracial marriages remained in place until 1951. It was not until the mid-20th century that things began to change in the Pacific Northwest. In 1948, the state Supreme Court declared California's law banning interracial marriages to be unconstitutional. And in 1951, Oregon repealed its own law prohibiting interracial marriages. The Portland chapter of the NAACP, the oldest continually chartered chapter west of the Mississippi River, was founded in 1914, and black activism and advocacy helped to bring about change in the region. Today, the Pacific Northwest is a more diverse and inclusive place, but the legacy of discrimination and exclusion still lingers. Here's the way things currently stack up. Number 1. According to the U.S. Census Bureau's American Community Survey, as of 2019, the black population in Washington state was approximately 4.1%, while in Oregon, it was around 2.2%. Number 2. In both Washington and Oregon, the black population is concentrated in the urban areas. In Washington, the majority of the black population resides in the Seattle-Tacoma-Bellevue metropolitan area, while in Oregon, the majority live in the Portland-Vancouver-Hillsborough metropolitan area. Number 3. According to a report from the Urban League of Portland, the median household income for black households in the Portland metro area is $40,385, which is significantly lower than the median income for all households in the area, which is $77,480. Number 4. In both states, the black population is disproportionately affected by homelessness, according to a report from the National Alliance to End Homelessness. In 2020, black people in Washington made up 10% of the homeless population, while in Oregon, they made up 6% of the homeless population. Number 5. In terms of education, a report from the Education Trust West found that in 2018, the high school graduation rate for black students in Washington was 76%, while in Oregon, it was 74%. This is lower than the overall graduation rate for both states, which is around 80%. Overall, while the black population in the Pacific Northwest is relatively small, they face a number of challenges, particularly in terms of economic and housing insecurity and educational disparities. This has been Critical Race Theory. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe and share this video with your friends and family. I'll see you next time.